Hello and welcome to the AWS Summit, and in particular to our session today called Data Driven Transformation with AWS IoT. My name is Mark Rolfe. I'm the worldwide director of the IoT and robotics go-to-market and specialist sales organization here at AWS. And it's going to be my pleasure to spend about the next half hour with you talking about the power of IoT and how it can really transform your business. And so let's dive into it. But before we really get into the details, I wanted to give a little bit of historical context about transformation. It's a word we hear a lot in the industry right now. And this has always happened. And I want to give you a little bit of historical context, a bit of an example to prove to you that this kind of transformation really does happen and can really change entire industries. And for this example, I'm going to use agriculture as the case study. Now, we hear a lot about this today. Agriculture using technology to meet the challenge of feeding all the people in the world. And that's no small feat. But it didn't just start recently with technology changing agriculture. It's been going on for quite a while. And so let me tell you the story of the Massey Harris number 20. Now, you might not be familiar with this or even who Massey Harris was, but Massey Harris was one of the largest industrial companies in the world. It's actually a British company, became a Canadian company known as the Massey Ferguson equipment manufacturer. They made farm equipment of all different shapes and sizes, combines and tractors and that sort of gear. And you can see from this ad, this is an ad from the early part of the 20th century, talking about their combines. In this case, it's kind of horse-drawn and horse-powered combines. Now, what's funny, if you really dive into the words on that slide, you'll see things like easy to manage. So some of the terminology may not have even changed that much compared to modern technology. But the real key here was there was an upper limit in agriculture in terms of productivity and efficiency, the limitations of this kind of piece of equipment. And as engine technology started to develop through the 20s and 30s, people really started to try and apply this technology in new ways. And there were a few attempts at self-powered combines for agriculture, taking the internal combustion engine and steam technology before that and applying it to agriculture. But it really wasn't until almost 1936, when a team of engineers led by a gentleman named Tom Carroll, based just outside of Toronto in Canada, came up with the very first purely revolutionary self-powered combine. It was lighter than some of the previous attempts. It was economical to build, and they released it to market. That was interesting. At the time, obviously, the World War had begun, and one of the challenges was being able to feed everyone during that difficult time. Massey Ferguson ended up arranging a deal with the Canadian and US government to use this new technology in a way that combined every farm that had purchased one of these new combines to basically harvest en masse to meet the demand during the war effort. And then after the war, it became one of the most popular pieces of equipment in farming. And what it did was it fundamentally changed how much fuel and energy was required to farm huge swaths of land. Production went through the roof, fundamentally transforming agriculture as a business. And now the family farm, the yields were fundamentally different. Farms got larger, and it led to modern agriculture. In fact, in my family, that's why we have this image so close to home here. This is actually an image we have here in our house. Our family were farmers in Canada and benefited from this technology. So we've even seen it firsthand. So that's one example just in agriculture. We can see a small piece of fundamental technology changing something fundamentally forever. Well, transformation is now beginning to accelerate in new ways. And in the IoT space, it has become really clear that the data from billions of connected IoT devices is going to be the fuel to transform many different types of industries in all parts of the world. And there's really a couple of reasons why organizations are looking to change. Now, IoT data is valuable really for two fundamental reasons. You can sort of see it here on the slide. On the left-hand side is, customers who are seeking to use IoT data to decrease their operating expenses, to basically drive operational efficiency as they seek to become more data driven, to use that data to drive the decisions that they make and ultimately change their operations to become more efficient. Now, in IoT, you see a lot of projects in this space, partially because the ROI is a little bit more straightforward. If I invest $100 to save $1,000 in efficiency, that's a project that I can probably get funded in my organization. But there's another sort of motivation to change and transform as well, which is using IoT data to change how we do business, to drive business growth, to drive revenue growth overall. And it's using data to drive better relationships with our customers, to build better products that evolve over time, and to explore new business models. And this might be the more difficult side of transformation as companies look to IoT data to maybe challenge the ways things were always bought and sold, new ways to help their customers and very new economic models. And so, in talking to customers, one of the things that I have found is that this transformation journey usually goes in a few different steps. We really maybe divided this into three big steps based on the experience we've had working with companies all over the industry. And it starts with changing what you build, thinking about that move to a connected product. A connected product has a whole bunch of benefits. One, you can get a lot of data from it. But two, it can be an experience that evolves. It can actually be a product that changes over time. You see this today in the consumer home automation market and in automotive as vehicles are able to have new feature sets overnight from an over-the-air update. Your home can have new capabilities, have new services added to devices. And being able to bring those new value-added services is pretty compelling to a lot of organizations. But as you move from the connected product, you might now think about using that data to change how you operate. And companies start to look inward on their own operations to see how they can transform. Driving efficiency dashboards, moving to predictive response, thinking about changing their supply chains, moving to smart factories and smart manufacturing. There's a lot that IoT can do just on the efficiency of the organization alone. And then ultimately, you go to changing your economics, thinking about new business models, going from selling a product to selling a service, something we've heard a lot of in the IoT space over time. Moving to data-based kinds of services. A great example there is in construction, where you see organizations moving from selling or leasing a piece of heavy equipment to charging based on the cubic foot of earth moved, regardless of how much equipment is required. Very different economic model, better for customers, perhaps more efficiency for the company itself, maybe a better source of revenue, but it requires a lot of data, a lot of applications behind it to do that. And so changing what you build, changing how you operate, changing your market economics. We see this as the journey that IoT data definitely takes us through. Now, we've helped lots of customers do this. AWS IoT has customers in almost every industry of every customer size in every part of the world. From customers like Vizio and iRobot in the home automation space to enterprise customers like Valmet, or industrial customers like Siemens or Volkswagen are great examples of customers that we're helping go through this transformation. They're using AWS IoT to do really, really interesting things to delight their customers. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that as we go through the presentation. But generally, what our customers are using IoT for is, like I mentioned, that increased productivity in manufacturing. In energy, they're looking to energy management, particularly in the renewable space, as new wind farms and solar operations are deployed and how you manage those and maintain those systems. Transformations in remote healthcare and connected vehicles. We've talked a lot about agriculture already. Inventory and supply chain changes for enterprises of all sizes. A lot of companies looking to IoT around enhanced worker safety. And of course, we've mentioned the smart home. You can see that the sort of the range of how IoT applies is pretty expansive. And I'll give you a really specific example with Volkswagen. About almost now 2 years ago, we announced our partnership with Volkswagen to help them develop the digital production platform. This is one of the most exciting and largest Industry 4.0 projects going on pretty much anywhere in the industry. And they have a lofty goal. They want to save about 30% of their operating costs by boosting plant efficiency. They're going to do this by building out this global platform powered by AWS IoT and other AWS services to combine data from machines and their supply chain systems and other aspects of their plants to really give them a new data-based insight into how to efficiently change their operation. And it's exciting because not only is the DPP, as it's known, the digital production platform, going to span across over 120 of Volkswagen's facilities, they're actually going to extend this out to their suppliers and their supply chain and partners worldwide. So it really becomes an expansive platform for efficiency. We're really excited to be a part of this project. We've already done a tremendous amount of work with Volkswagen, and we're learning a lot with them as we go through this journey. Some of the lessons we're going to help bring to you as well. Now, how is Volkswagen doing this? Well, let's talk about some of the services and technology from AWS IoT that's helping them achieve that. The services we build, which are specially designed to help you build out IoT solutions, we think of a bit of a virtuous cycle. We've divided those services into three categories, really representing what a lot of IoT developers need to successfully roll out these projects. Let's start with our connectivity and control services. These are a set of services designed to connect devices to the cloud, to manage them, and to ensure that they're as secure as they possibly can be. And then there's our analytics, AI, and ML services that really help you draw business value from the data that you collect, to be able to connect to industrial data sources, to be able to prep data for analytics and advanced machine learning. And then there's our edge and device services and software. These are technologies designed to help you operate close to the edge when you need to. One of the unique things in IoT is that need to sometimes be on a device or close to data in a factory for a variety of reasons, from environmental or bandwidth concerns or latency concerns, or sometimes even regulation. And all of this comes together to really help drive the kinds of business outcomes people are looking for in their IoT solutions. Customers are choosing AWS IoT to do this more and more every day. We already have tens of thousands of customers worldwide using one of the various AWS IoT services. Nearly 90% of the Fortune 100 use AWS IoT for their IoT applications. Today, just to give you a sense of the scale that we're operating in, we communicate with over 500 million active endpoints a month. That is a huge number of IoT endpoints, all communicating with the cloud. And to do that, we're transmitting over 500 billion payload messages a month. This is enormous scale that really represents the explosion of IoT devices out in the market. And we're not alone in doing this. We have over 300 partners and partner solutions here to help you with specific applications and industry needs. There's over 500 qualified partner devices, everything from chips to gateways to communication modules. And for the smallest of devices in the microcontroller realm, which is the edge of the edge, we provide the #1 real-time operating system in the market that's 4 times the size market share in market share terms as our closest competitor. So let's dive in, and I want to tell you just a little bit more about those services to help you get to know them. The connectivity and control services start with AWS IoT Core. This was our very first service in the IoT space and is our primary way to connect devices to the cloud. It's augmented by two additional services, AWS IoT Device Management and AWS IoT Device Defender, which provide device management, as the name suggests, and a security auditing service to help you ensure that your fleet is as secure as possible and that you can respond to any threats accordingly. A good example of a customer using these services is Wyze. Many of you may know them from their cameras and other home automation devices that they provide. Wyze uses our IoT platform as well as Kinesis video streaming for the ingest of video from their cameras and doorbells to provide low cost and incredibly popular home automation devices that are probably familiar to a lot of you. And they're doing this on a huge scale of devices connected all around the world. Now, in the analytics and AI ML part of that virtuous cycle, let's talk about a few of the services there as well. AWS IoT Sitewise, which was introduced earlier last year, is our service to connect industrial data sources to AWS. Sitewise is a combination of an edge component and a cloud component that can exist inside industrial operations, connect to data sources like OPC UA servers and endpoints, and ingest data from those existing brownfield devices in a manufacturing facility and be able to collect and map that data in those devices to help you build operations dashboards and to be able to ingest for KPI building and advanced analytics. AWS IoT Analytics can take data from devices connected both through AWS IoT Core and through APIs and other means to be able to prep data for advanced analytics, run pre-packaged analytics against your IoT data, really to make generating business insights from IoT data as easy as possible. And IoT events, which is condition monitoring as a service, so you can react to different events as they take place as you collect data from devices spread around your organization. Vector Energy is a good example of a customer using these analytics services to help transform their operations. Vector, company we talked a lot about at reInvent, is building a new energy platform, which is helping them transform how they do energy management with their customers. Vector, an energy management organization based out of Australia, is really thinking about how the next generation of energy management systems will be built and consumed by customers. And finally, our edge and devices technology. This includes services like AWS IoT Greengrass. Greengrass is our runtime and distribution service for IoT applications. That includes small, lightweight code written in Lambda or built-in containers or machine learning inference that you can deploy out to the edge. And FreeRTOS, which I mentioned earlier, is a real-time operating system for microcontroller devices. And all of that is augmented by our device SDK, one of the most common ways for devices to connect to AWS IoT. Carrier is a great example of someone using our edge components to build their transformational IoT platform. Lynx is Carrier's cold chain operation platform as part of their supply chain services. And they are redefining how to think about supply chain and transformation and cold chain through the advances that they're making in Lynx. They're using AWS IoT today, not only for things like perishable food, but for the transport of perishable medications as well. It's something that obviously is pretty important in these times. All of this is built on AWS IoT, and we help maintain the temperature during transport. We are able to do analytics against that cold chain to ensure that's in place, just to ensure that none of those perishables end up in a bad state. And all of this has meant reduced waste, lower cargo costs, lower spoilage, and overall better outcomes for Carrier's customers. Now, I mentioned Greengrass. Greengrass, which has been a part of the AWS IoT family for quite some time, has gone through a major change as of reInvent. We announced Greengrass 2.0, which had two major advancements that many IoT developers were excited to hear. Number one, we've re-architected Greengrass to make it completely modular, easier to deploy at scale, and locally configurable, something a lot of IoT developers were asking for. This is going to make building applications and deploying IoT application even easier for a developer. But now we've also made it open sourced. That was a big request of a lot of our customers, particularly people building connected devices who wanted to use Greengrass as part of those device builds. We're really happy to have been able to open source Greengrass to even expand the use cases at the edge. Now, I talked about the edge quite a bit so far, and it's important to know that AWS has the most complete platform for building and deploying edge applications. It starts with our services for the edge. And I've talked about Greengrass and FreeRTOS, but it includes things like Kinesis video streaming, CloudFront, RoboMaker, even our voice services. It includes things like our ruggedized devices for the edge and the Snowball family. And then the cloud for the edge, our purpose-built technologies to help push as much cloud capabilities as close to the edge as possible. That includes things like AWS Outposts, which brings AWS capabilities on premise, Wavelength that takes advantage of the 5G developments going on all over the world, and AWS Local Zones that can bring metropolitan level latency to a lot of our services. Now, in industrial, the edge can be particularly important. These are the rugged conditions that are sometimes limited by their bandwidth, by access to equipment, and even by the regulations that sometimes run these operations. And we've launched a few new services to help our industrial customers specifically connect their devices and operate at the edge as easily as possible. One of the things that we announced was AWS IoT Core for LoRaWAN. LoRaWAN, which is a communications protocol that allows low power devices to connect to the cloud for ingest of data, has now been linked to AWS IoT Core. This is really exciting because it means that you can connect LoRaWAN devices without having to run your own LoRaWAN network server. Now, built into AWS IoT Core, it means you can manage a LoRaWAN network server, you can build applications connected to those devices, and ensure that you're getting all the benefits of cloud economics and best-in-class pricing for connecting those LoRa devices. We also announced SiteWise Edge, which is an enhancement to SiteWise to collect and process and visualize equipment data on-premise, even when disconnected. It brings capabilities of the existing SiteWise service closer to the on-premise scenarios in a lot of our manufacturing customers. SiteWise Edge runs on third-party gateways on AWS Outposts or any of the Snowball family of devices, and can bring that same capability that you get with SiteWise in the cloud, localized and pushed out to the edge. Again, another requirement of a lot of our manufacturing customers. Outside of AWS IoT, but still very related to our industrial customers, are two other services that are pretty exciting. One is Lookout for Equipment. Amazon Lookout for Equipment is a new service to help you detect abnormal machine behavior using existing industrial sensor data. That's by ingesting data from these devices. Lookout is able to use machine learning models to watch out for changes in that equipment that could be indications of abnormalities and problems about to happen. Essentially helps you build that kind of predictive response to help you get ahead of any costly maintenance requirements. And to enhance that service, there's also Amazon Monitron. This one's really exciting. Pre-built modules that can be added to existing equipment, purchased from Amazon.com, deployed easily, providing an end-to-end solution for equipment monitoring. So you can connect these devices to your existing equipment. You don't need any machine learning knowledge to be able to use them. The sensors automatically collect data from that equipment and push it back through Monitron and into services like Lookout. That means that on an existing shop floor in an industrial setting, you could be deploying these sensors and being up and running with that same kind of predictive response in a matter of days or weeks instead of months or many, many months that perhaps it would have taken with some of the existing technologies in the OT market today. It's a really exciting advancement. Now, for our customers looking for something perhaps a little bit more robust across many of their operations that incorporate things like Monitron and Lookout and Sitewise, we've actually packaged this together as a solution set. We call it the Connected Factory. The Connected Factory offering is a set of reference architectures and technology blueprints, partner technologies designed to be able to easily connect to your existing operations so that you can get up and running with the same kind of insights, efficiency dashboards across multiple plants, lines within a plant, again, measured in matters of weeks instead of months or years, at a cost, instead of deploying huge teams, smaller teams being able to deploy this much more rapidly without an army of people having to do the work to get connected. This is incredibly powerful for a lot of our customers because they are looking to find those insights as quickly as possible as they go on their transformation journey. Now, I mentioned partners at several occasions in the presentation, and it's important to know that we have a full range of partners from the edge to the cloud to help you in your IoT transformation journey. That includes all the edge and devices, the connectivity providers, networks and carriers, analytics and machine learning and AI partners, systems integrators, both global and regional, and everything in between that you might need to make your journey as easy as possible. All of these partners build around AWS IoT and work with us to build out solution sets like the Connected Factory that I mentioned, but for many more industries and use cases as well. You can find many of these referenced in the IoT solution catalog and find what our partners offer and how to get in touch with them. You can go to AWS IoT, aws.amazon.com/IoT/solutions to find out more. And if you want to hear more about what we're doing in the industrial space in general, go to aws.amazon.com/industrial to see more of these capabilities from AWS and our partners and some of the success stories from our customers. The last thing I'll say in this space when you think about transformation is you want to have a partner who knows what you've been through, who knows the path to be able to successfully transform your organization. And here at AWS and Amazon more broadly, we have this experience of putting it all together because we do it for ourselves every single day. We have our fulfillment center network and sorting centers, our extensive use of robotics, our huge transportation networks, and we even build our own home automation devices as well. What that means is we felt that pain that you may be going through. We may have found some shortcuts to be able to get there, and we're going to take all of that experience and knowledge and apply it to your problems to make your journey as easy as it possibly can be. If you want to learn more and get your hands on some of these technologies, I also really encourage you to go to our training and certification site. You're going to find over 25 free courses, all geared around AWS IoT, so you and your teams can start to learn and use these technologies yourselves. I want to really thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I hope you've learned a little bit about how IoT can help that transformation journey, how it can be as easy as possible, and how you can use some of the technologies from AWS IoT to do it. I encourage you to take a moment and go to the session survey like all the speakers. I hope this is useful and I hope it's reflected. And if we can do better, let me know as well. I want to thank you for investing your time at the AWS Summit. We hope to see you again really soon.